Hello everyone, this is John Alexis Guerra Gomez with Northeastern University's online course for web development. This is week 9, I think. And in the previous week, we started building this very basic application that it's connecting Node, Express, Mongo with Vite and a front end using React, an SAP or a single page application using React in Classic 1, using React 19. To do a little bit of recap of what we did, like this is the architecture that we are trying to use, something very similar to what we have been doing in the past. Like this is what we did in the previous project, where we have like a regular client that was very client-side heavy or client render, but using just standard HTML and the DOM and vanilla JavaScript. And we had a backend with Node and Express that had a static folder that is where we served everything, and we only had some routes for serving data endpoints that will return like JSON files. So we are continuing with that, but we are incorporating in there something like React, which basically will contain like this folder that you can see in here. This is our front-end folder that we have it as a separate project inside our Node and Express application. The backend in our Node Express application, following the standard that we have a very minimalistic in here. We're probably going to be adding a little bit more of stuff in here for parsing other things. But we have this backend. Here is our package.json that says that this is our main file, and we are using Express 5. We have a bunch of development dependencies that is more for linting, and that backend loads our routes that are in this listing file that you can see in here is very basic, which we are getting directly from here. Okay, then the whole idea is that the front end is going to be this component in here. Might be more accurate to put it in like changing this name to build, and I'm going to show you why. Again, basically we have this source file that contains our React in JSX format, as you see, and we are using Vite to transform that into a standard or a build folder. It's actually this folder for build Vite, where we have like our compile or transpile or static version of React. Remember that you can get that by coming here. Let me go and stop all the servers so we can see how to run this. So basically, the way that we run this is that you can get the backend, and then, as I said, we have two different projects in there. The backend is going to contain our Node and Express application, and the basic one that we have in here, just run it with npm start. Remember that every time you want to know what scripts you can run on an application, just look at the package.json and take a look at the scripts page. So in here, basically we see that we have that one, and we can see this running in the port localhost 3000. And the reason why this works is that in our backend, we are loading a static application that contains the front end and the dist folder. And in that dist folder, so I'm here, so if I open a new terminal in here, and then I just go into the front end folder, I can run npm run build, which is another script. If you want to find that one, you will not find it in this package.json, because inside that front end we have a separate JavaScript project that contains all related to React. So in that package.json, it's very important that you learn to separate the two of them. We have all of these Vite commands, so when we run npm run build, that is going to transpile and actually generate like static folder. So that's basically what I'm trying to convey in here, is that we are going from the JSX to direct standard JavaScript. You can see that standard JavaScript in here in the assets in this file, and it's actually minified, so that's why it's hard to read, but if we apply prettier in there, you still can get some of it. And like if you remember like our earlier videos, that's basically the way React is built. So for those of you that are still trying to come up with this, remember it's like React is just a nicer way of combining components in a way where we can combine like the view and the controller for the components, similar to what I was saying in here. and then have a simplified model where we have like state and everything is handled downwards. So we have this like simplified elements in here. Back to what we were saying, like in the dist folder, we have a static version of React. So if you only have the backend and you compile this, then, and we see, for instance, these are the different pages that we have, for instance, in this case, like this is the index page. So if I come in here and you guys see this, like for instance, I don't like that this is saying front end in there. So we can change here on the index. We can say this is the apartment finder React version. So if you want to make a simple change like that, and let's say, for instance, that I want to get rid of this before and after in there, and then I save this, and even if I refresh in here, you're not going to see the changes, because as I said here, the way we have it is that the server is running in the backend. We only have the backend server running, and it's using the compiled version. So if you want to get those changes, then you're going to have to recompile that, and by recompiling and then updating this, then now you can see the changes. But that's too complicated, like there's too many steps for development. So one alternative that we have is that we can actually run the Vite development server here in the front end, and then we are going to have two different servers. This is for the backend in the port 3000 and the front end in the port 5173. And remember that we added these configurations. So we added this line in here for telling React that whenever it finds something that is not a request for React, then try to go and proxy those to localhost 3000, where we are running the backend. And we also changed this Vite config that you see in here that allows us to redirect that in there. So after doing that, if you actually come and start working directly on the localhost 5173, you can see the changes. You can open here on the console and see that, for instance, on this index page, we are doing a fetch of the backend and actually printing the results. So that's exactly what we're doing in here. So that's actually useful. And then the other thing that you can see in here is that if you just go and change parameters for this or anything, like I can just update this and take a look in here on the right. So if I do that, then you can see that it disappears right away. So basically I can just add my typical regular code in there, and you can see the changes. And every time you're ready to deploy, then you just compile things. So that is the step where we left. Let me, to wrap up this video, actually upload all of these to GitHub. Hopefully everything is still working. Seems like it. So I'm going to create a new project just for this one, and I'm going to call it, let's open a new one in here. I'm just too lazy, and then I want to use exactly the same name that I have in here. So basically it's going to be this one. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call it that, and this is a simple Node plus Express 5 plus MongoDB, Mongo plus React 19 plus Vite application for an apartment finder. Okay. We are going to use the gitignore for node files. The license is going to be MIT. Do we have a README here? We have a README in the front end, but not in the back end. So we can create a README file, and then I can create the repository. Then basically, let me take the SSH version, and then let me stop the server, and I'm going to do a git init to initialize the repository. And you can see that now it changed a bunch of things in here, including like the git folder. And then I'm going to do git remote add origin. So we are going to add a remote, which is going to be this one. And first step, let's go and origin pull from origin main, which should get us the default version, and then I'm going to add everything in here and commit basically saying basic skeleton for Node plus Express plus React with Vite. And then we can add this, and we can do git push. And let's go and set this one up so we have that one default. And just by doing that, then you can do this. Okay, so if you want to follow along, then you can use this repository. So in the next videos, I'm going to try to teach you how to use the state management and more details on where to store your data and all of the different elements from React. Okay.